Stage 1. Building the letters. If you want to learn how to draw letters in Wildstyle Graffiti style, watch me as I create this piece step by step. Before starting any Wildstyle drawing, I usually look at letter fonts on the internet. These fonts help give me the basic structure of the letters. After that, I begin to add my own Wildstyle flavor. First, I slightly sketch the letter L. I bend it slightly in the middle to give it movement. Now for the letter E, one thing about the letter L is that it usually leaves a gap between the letters. To solve that problem, I place the letter E on top of the lower part of the L. To fill that empty space, I draw the E element almost like a letter C, but I extend the bottom part so it reaches the same distance as the lower part of the L. Then I add a small arrow in the center so the viewer clearly reads the letter E. Next comes the letter V. I bend it slightly so it follows the same flow of the movement. As the other letters, for the letter I also give it a slightly bend so the entire name moves together as one piece. Notice how I connect together in the Wildstyle Graffiti letters to feel like they belong to the same rhythm. What's up, YouTube and graffiti artists? My name is Louis Tong and welcome to my channel. The name I'll be drawing today is Levi, spelled L-E-V-I. In this video, I will be using the pen and ink. Alright, so this is the name L-E-L-E-V-I. Okay, I would like to talk about a little bit about the E, because the L, if I had put the E over here, then have this big negative space over here, so that's why I just put it on top of it and then stretch the bottom this way. So we're gonna get into stage 2 when it comes to the arrows and connections and all bits and pieces. Stage 2, extensions and style. Now we move into stage 2 where the real Wildstyle begins. This where I start adding extensions, arrows, and then extra pieces to the letters. I begin with the letter L, adding arrows and extensions that push outward from the form. Then I move to the letter E. I notice the same negative space above the letter E. I know some negative space above the letter, so I start filling that area with additional shapes and details. Little by little, I continue building the structure of the E. For the letter V, I add more layers and shapes to make the letter stronger and more dynamic. The letter I treat almost like a lowercase I, adding small bits and pieces and a couple of arrows. When creating Wildstyle Graffiti, always look for negative space between the letters. If you see empty areas, you can fill them with the shapes, arrows, and or extensions. I continue drawing lightly so I can make adjustments if needed. Sometimes I go back to the earlier letters and add more details. For example, I felt the letter V needed an arrow at the bottom, so I added one to improve the balance of the piece. Stage 3, creating the 3D effect. In stage 3, I want to give the piece a 3-dimensional block letter look. To do that, I use a classical art technique called perspective drawing. I place a piece of paper underneath my drawing so I have more space, and I create a vanishing point at the bottom right corner of the page. Then I place a ruler on that vanishing point and lightly draw from the vanishing point for the corners of each letter. This technique helps create the illusion of depth. The angle we are using here is called the worm's eye view, which means we are looking up at the letters from below. If you want to learn more about perspective drawing, I recommend studying 1-point, 2-point, and 3-point perspective. These techniques are very useful in both graffiti and classical drawing. Once you are satisfied with the perspective lines, we can move on to the next stage. Stage 4, inking the piece. Now we have to the inking stage. I leave the pencil lines visible so I can carefully trace over them with the ink later. I will erase the pencil marks once the drawing is complete. First I use a fine point pen to outline the letters. After that I begin inking again with a thicker pen. My inking style usually goes from thin lines to thicker lines inside the letters. For the outer edges of the piece, I switch to a brush pen to create a bold, heavy lines that give the graffiti more power. When working with the pen ink, I try to use different line weights to give the drawing variety and energy. Inking is an art form. You can learn many techniques by studying comic book inking and pen ink drawing tutorials here on YouTube. Now I start adding design elements inside the letters. Then I use a marker to build the background, including some drips which are classical elements in graffiti culture. Okay, so someone once told me that they enjoy seeing that effect in my work, so I like to include it in my pieces. Next I begin adding a scribble technique inside the block letters, which creates texture and movement. To finish the piece, I use white gel pen to add highlights, outlines, and final details. What's great about this pen is that the opaque, which means I can draw directly on top of black ink. Now stay with me as I continue finishing the drawing while we listen to some music. Don't go away, there's still more to see. This is the piece, Levi, Levi. Alright, so let me know what you think. If you want your name in graffiti style, just check out my description box below. And yeah, just give it a like. If you like it, give it a share with your friends. Make a comment if you have any questions, and give my channel, subscribe to my channel. My name is Louis St. John. Thanks for watching.